The dying press will do pretty much anything to keep themselves alive, either by writing absolutely horrendous articles about a fictional character's penis length, no seriously, or using their platforms to write their own personal diaries. No, seriously. They're literally writing personal diaries, and I'm gonna give you two very bizarre personal diaries. Both are from Kotaku, and both show how incredibly messed up and mentally deranged some of the writers are. Let's start off with the oldest one. Here's an article about how the Overwatch players who are nice to our Kotaku writer are giving him anxiety. Oh man, that's horrible. As someone who has social anxieties as well, care to elaborate how you can come into this horrendous tragedy? Now, it's been established that Overwatch has a pretty damn toxic fan base. I've made tons of videos talking about the issue, so I won't harp on them again. The toxicity of Overwatch has led players who are originally toxic to apologize for their behaviors. What does our writer do to these players who apologize? Saying, "I hate you." Well, that's a good start. Our writer clarified that he appreciated these people. He appreciated their burst of positivity that diffused countless of volatile situations, and that their actions are inspiring him and making him to become more and more confident to become a team player and doing his best. Okay, so why do you hate them so much, writer? Well, the writer basically just doesn't have the same enthusiasm on being as nice as them, and thus giving him the social anxiety. The writer joined one match in Overwatch, and then before he started to give Lucio's popular line, "We're gonna do great," he stopped. Why did he stop? Because he's worried that people in the voice chat are gonna think that he's a total dork, or that maybe they're gonna yell at him and then he panicked. In other words, typical social anxiety problem that pretty much everyone suffered. Nothing special. As someone who has social anxieties, but not as much compared to my teenage years, let me tell you this. One of the big reasons why people have social anxieties is because they tend to overthink people's reactions a bit too much. Sometimes, not all the times obviously, you just need to tell people what you feel, how you feel, and let their reactions spring naturally. The more and more you pile it up inside, the more and more troubling it will become. It's kind of like holding your pee. You need to let it out before it gets hurt and potentially kill you. It sounds pretty easy, I know, but trust me, you better do it right now or you will learn it the hard way. With that being said, 90% of people in the voice chat of Overwatch are gonna be absolute dicks to each other anyway, especially knowing that this is a pretty competitive game. So having social anxieties in a game that has players that are not afraid of saying insults and slurs to your face is a pretty understandable reason. I don't blame you for having social anxieties while visiting a gang-ridden district of Detroit. However, blaming it to the nicest players is pretty unfair because it's really not their fault. It's due to the game's overly competitive nature and the rest of the players who are absolute dicks to everyone. The article continues with the writer saying, "Well, I actually end up saying nothing at all." Which is amazing, writer. You could have saved time and just mute the entire freaking voice chat. If somebody told you that you're an antisocial jerk for muting the voice chat, don't listen to them. There are so many people out there who plays multiplayer that mute the freaking voice chat. There are so many, in fact, that it's probably the norm to do so because they just couldn't handle people shouting at each other with insults, curses, and slurs. You can either have a social anxiety dilemma or figuring out what to say to people. Or just mute the voice chat and save everyone's freaking time. The writer then attempted to commit a social interaction by typing on the chat, "Hey, how are you so good at aiming in Pharah versus Pharah battles?" The level of normie that is put on this sentence is one hell of a cringe to take. Nobody goes into a random player on the internet who is good at video games and go, "Wow, how are you so good?" Writer, I think the reason why you have social anxieties is because you are a normie who cannot fully grasp how people on the internet interact with each other. Christ, it's like watching Watamote, except the protagonist is a fully grown adult. In other words, welcome to the NHK. And of course, the writer gets embarrassed. I mean, I can't blame you, that is one hell of a cringy attempt. But hey, don't let my opinions get in your way of trying to blend in with the gamers and overcoming your social anxieties. I'm just here to share some opinions, and in my opinion, I think you should just mute the voice chat entirely. The in-game Overwatch community is not exactly the friendliest of places. The writer then ends the article by saying, "Wow, you guys set up a great example in how to be great human beings, but I really hate you because you make me look like an idiot. You make me look like a pathetic doofus, and I hate that. I don't want to look like a pathetic doofus, so instead of figuring out ways on how to stop being a pathetic doofus, I'm going to go to the internet and write an article excusing my pathetic doofus behaviors while blaming all of you for making me feel bad. This will surely help me in overcoming my social anxieties." To make a long story short, it's quite literally Watamote. Not just the anime Watamote, but the title. No matter how I look at it, it's you guys' fault that I'm not popular. Well, writer, if this is an attempt to make a live-action Watamote movie, maybe find someone who is not a grown-up adult man. In the next episode of Deranged Writers with Severe Social Anxieties and Mental Issues, we have another article that is literally the writer's freaking diary page. Kotaku will do pretty much anything to get clicks, including making their writers to look like a mentally unstable individual who cannot distinguish between fiction and reality and are pretty damn horny towards a fictional character's dicks. This is what the people at the White House are referring to when they're talking about kids that are so mentally damaged that they could be potential school shooters. But let's not talk too much based on the title. Let's just get straight to the article. So the article is about how the writer got the copy of Burnout Paradise Remastered. Why Burnout Paradise of all games? Why not Burnout 3? Burnout 3 kicked ass. Burnout Paradise was just okay. It's great that we have a Burnout game in the next-gen platforms, but someone should at least give us a new one. Then again, the franchise is on EA's hands, so maybe I'm hoping way too much. Anyway, the article starts off with the writer getting a copy of Burnout Paradise Remastered, and the writer is playing it on a great 4K 60fps display on her television. If you don't know Burnout's gameplay by now, it's not just racing, it's also smashing cars and tearing them up to pieces. Smashing cars is still in Paradise, just not as satisfying as they were in Burnout 3 in my opinion. The issue that the writer has is not in the game, it's that the writer owns a car. Okay. I also own a car too, writer. I'm a very newbie driver, in fact. I can just crash people and tear them up to pieces in Burnout Paradise, but I won't crash to people in real life because I have only one car and driving with stick in real life is just not as easy as driving auto with a controller. The writer then talks about her memories of playing Burnout Revenge with her brother and how she will crash to each other and embrace the ridiculous destruction, physics, and explosions. Great, so what's the problem then? The problem is the writer is mentally unstable. At one time during a fit of rage, she yanked her PS2 console from the shelf, threw it into the ground floor, and threw the wired controller in a raging fit to the point where the console broke and never turned on again. What the hell is wrong with you, writer? I've had worse raging fits from playing God Hand and even I don't have the balls to do that. If you have a temper this bad, do yourselves a favor and don't throw your Switch into the window the moment you get your Dark Souls Remastered copy. Anyway, the writer is revealed to be 14 years old at the time. Writer, I've had worse puberty days and even I wouldn't throw that massive amount of tantrum. The writer talked about how at the age of 14, she doesn't know car ownership nor did she know about responsibility. Writer, your parents have failed you. How the hell didn't you know about the concept of responsibility at the age of 14? I wouldn't be surprised if you end up in the crime section of the local newspaper. I really don't want to believe that this writer can be a potential criminal in the making, but her story really doesn't help. She then talked about her impulses in destroying cars. Not cars in video games, mind you, but real life cars as well. As she also talked about her experience throwing Red Bull cans at passing vehicles and jump into a ding-up Corolla with muddy boots. Okay, so not only the writer is mentally unstable, she also has some very unhealthy destructive tendencies. Kotaku, do you have anyone in your website that proofread these articles and thought, I don't know, I think this might sound a bit psychotic. It's been around 12 years since the writer picked up a Burnout game, so the writer is probably in her mid-20s by now. So after the writer owned a car and becoming a driver, she learned that her destruction derby impulses turned out to be just mere fantasies, as she suffered from anxieties in not trying to hit someone else's car and checking up her bank account to pay up the damage that she caused to the car that she drove. This person literally cannot distinguish between fiction and reality. She cannot separate her destruction derby fantasies with whatever is happening in the real world. Please make sure that she doesn't hit someone.
But women should never be allowed to drive.
The writer then proceeded to talk about playing Burnout Paradise and how the game is so realistic, she actually paused for a moment, think about how much of a psycho she is for playing this game, and quit entirely because she couldn't take it. That's just amazing. The amount of fiction-reality dissonance that this writer has is one of the most astonishing things that I have read in a while. I cannot believe that a person who is alive cannot distinguish between the two this badly. One hilarious thing that she did is to avoid bumping her opponents because she is afraid to damage her own car. That's right, she is so afraid of bumping to other people's cars, she floored her way out and narrowly trying to avoid them at all costs. Writer, did you know that the car that you control in that game is freaking fictional? Also, did you know that one of the ways for you to gain speed boost in the game is if you destroy each other? That's why the opponents there were trying so hard to destroy you. So why can't this writer distinguish between fiction and reality? Is it because she is mentally damaged, poorly parented, and has developed severe destructive behaviors from her younger years? Absolutely correct, but that's not what the writer thinks. The writer thinks, oh, it's because I own a car and therefore I just really couldn't help but to feel guilty on destroying other cars in Burnout. Yes, writer, I am totally convinced that it was because you have a car. You know what also convinced me? Telling a story about how you crashed your car and had to call up tons and tons of towing companies before finally reuniting with it again. What an inspiring story to tell us that doesn't make you look incompetent or destructive in any way, shape, or form. I feel like you're writing this article in an attempt to hide your guilt of enjoying destruction so much. I mean, it's just so childish. I'm an adult now, right? The writer continues by saying, wreaking havoc on well-rendered images of cars is not an escapist fantasy that I have anymore as an adult. Good for you, writer. Glad you moved on from your childish fantasies into something more mature, like destroying mechs in Nier Automata? The writer then said, hey, I never owned mechs, nor have I paid mech insurance, proving once again that she has completely lost any sorts of grasp between fiction and reality. She then also talked about how Kotaku's automotive partner Jalopnik were torn in the issue of Destruction Derby. One person doesn't have the fantasy of cars being destroyed, but others say that car crash games are amazing and I really love car destructions. One even said that owning a car and wrecking virtual cars is a good combination. Writer, you should also ask that person about the cars in Burnout Paradise. Ask them if they are real. The article ends with one of the cringiest paragraphs that I have ever read. Firing up Burnout Paradise Remastered again, I decided to avoid the crashy stuff and just go for a long, scenic drive along the coast. The water looked beautiful, the sky endless. It was pleasant. Tonight, I will download American Truck Simulator and do that there. Yes. Go play Burnout Paradise and just enjoy the pretty scenery. When the last article reminds me of Watamote, this article ironically reminds me of gamers.
それに比べてお前
はい。
さっきの車の上で飛び跳ねてたあれはなんだ
あれはすごく綺麗な景色が見えるんじゃないかと思ったんですよ。You're a genius.